Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to check a few things before we start. Maltin għanna u għek, kuxek? Okay. Il-Maltin li għaw. Tippreferu jkun bl-Inglis, naf li nippreferu li jkun bil-Malti, imma għandna ħafna foreigners. So we have to, inkella nkunu għedin niswitcha, not niswitcha bej Malti u Inglis, mux problema lija. Kif tippreferu? L-Inglis tajjeb. Immekka u xaħat li għandu diffikultà u jishtiq bil-Malti. Let us know as well. Right. We're trying to conduct this tour in English. Does everybody understand English? All right. Good. So, good morning once again. And my name is Paul. I come from the foundation of Malta Railway. And what we're going to visit this morning is the only underground station which the Malta Railway had, which is situated here in Floriana. The terminus was in Valletta. So funnily enough, the people residing in Floriana, for the same price, for the same fare, preferred to go to Valletta, board from Valletta, because that would give them an extra 2-3 minutes on the railway, which was a novelty at the time. And even on their return journey, they never stopped here. Most of them stopped at Valletta to get another few minutes extra. You could say they got their money's worth. But this is a very interesting station, the one we're going to see. The train did not stop here on regular basis, but only on peak hours, where you had workmen traveling on the railway. But the railway started operations way back in 1983. 1883, sorry, I said 1983. 1883. And operations ceased in 1931. So you had almost a span of almost 50 years, with a small break at the time before the turn of the century when the railway went bankrupt and the government took over. Now, to come to this particular station, if we move on my right hand side, if you follow me over here, you can book your ticket. A ticket would take you up to Rabat. Before the turn of the century, the train stopped at Northamillen, just underneath Aya Hill in Rabat. After the turn of the century, when the railway was extended to Intarfa, you could stop at Intarfa. Now, this particular station was used mainly not by the locals, but by military personnel, because they were having the times of their life at Balzonetta, drinking and dancing. Balzonetta, for those who are not well versed with Floriana, was what is known like Parcheville today, in a smaller scale. But at the same time, it was an extension, sort of, to Straight Street, the gut, in Valletta. Yes. So there were people, there were military personnel who preferred to come to Balzonetta. Once they were drunk, the easiest way to the railway to get to Tarfa, to their barracks, was to come to Floriana. Otherwise, his mate had to carry him, and drag him along up to the terminus in Valletta. Here, it was nearer and easier, less weight to carry. So people came here, bought their tickets, and made their way to the underground station. There is a stairway on the side here, which led into the gardens and to the pathway, also over a bridge and down to the platform. Or the other way was in that room in particular, where there's the light on the door, that leads down through a stairway, which is blocked. The stairway during the Second World War served as classrooms. So teachers with their students used to teach school children, give lessons during the war, because being a stairway, going downhill, it gave them at least peace of mind or security in case there was an air raid. We will be going through a different way, but we will go through the gardens, but we will go past this blocked stairway. Okay? Now, as we go along, if there are any questions, please stop me and ask. I will try to answer them. Let's put it that way. As we go along, any questions so far? Tickets varied. They started from half a penny to mainly 2 pence, 3 pence. It depends, because there were fares which were charged during feast days, when there was a feast like 29 June, feast of St. Peter and St. Paul, and people traveled down to Rabat to go for Nadia. You know, they varied. And also the distance, plus the class you were traveling in. The railway had first class, second class, and third class. Second class was rarely used. It was either first class or third class. Then there were some wagons which were called and known as workers' wagons. If you were to see them, you would say these were troop carriers. Those of you who like to see a number of photographs, you can go. Those who have Facebook, you can go onto Facebook, type in the Malta Railway capital letters. There's lots of information. There are a number of photographs. The photographs are there for those of you who'd like to download them. You can download them. No photographs don't belong to me or to anybody. They belong to the Maltese people. They belong to those people who have special interest for the railway. Enjoy them. Make the best use out of them. Yes. Yes. Exactly. If you were to go to that door, hopefully one day we will be able to go through those steps. It's like going down in London, going down to the underground station. If you look at, once we go down, you will notice that they're all the same. There is a very nice door, a very important feature here, because here, this is known as St. Philip's Garden, but it was part of the defense system for the city. There was a magazine, which is situated further down the steps, and they carried ammunition for the bastion, for the whole bastion.
What period are you talking about?
The Knights, during the time of the Knights. Now this door sealed the entrance. It's a mechanical door. It's got a mechanical system, and this wasn't. This was done during. I mean, the door came from the time during the time of the Knights, but eventually the mechanical system was introduced during the British time. Okay. Right. The railing on this footbridge is original railing. Even the footbridge itself. When we go down, you can look up underneath the bridge and you will realize. On the left-hand side, as you're coming down, you can see also shelters which were dug during the war. There was also a defense system. If you look up there, soldiers could defend the station also from up there, just in case somebody intended to attack the area. There were different systems of defense. We'll show you also the defense system down for the railway once we are down. Be careful as you turn from the footbridge. It's a bit slippery there, okay? All right? The train came through here, if it was coming through from Valletta, or through here, if it was coming from Medina or Rabat. So basically, if you were going, if you wanted to travel to Valletta, you went through there, or in Medina, through there. Now, once people got down here, there was a guard here, and if the train was coming, or the train is leaving the station, he would not let them cross. Because the way to the platform is from the same area where you had the rail tracks. Okay? If it was clear, or the train was at the stop, then he would let them go. On the right-hand side, the tunnel proceeded to Bombay, to Port de Bombs. It emerged from Port de Bombs and then onwards towards Hamroun. On the right-hand side, you can have a look at it on your way out. There was a magazine room where there is a defense system, so soldiers could defend this station if there was an attack coming from Port de Bombs area. And besides, there was ammunition there, which ammunition was sent up to Bin Gemma, mainly on the railway, when the railway was not in operation during its normal schedule. The British always said that the train never had a military role. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Number one, first and foremost, it was used by military personnel to come down towards Valletta from Intarfa. And what were known as workers' wagons, they were troop carriers. But besides all that, during night time, when in Malta there was no television, there was no entertainment whatsoever, except the bars in Straight Street, and everywhere was dark, pitch black. The train was operational, and the military personnel came to operate the train at that time. And they took ammunition and certain cargo from here up to Intarfa, which was the nearest point to Bin Gemma. Bin Gemma was the north defense system for the island. Those of you who are well acquainted with history and have been to Bin Gemma and saw the Victoria lines, the area of Bin Gemma and the Victoria line was actually crossed from one end to the other and defended the north of the island. And all the equipment, all the ammunition went by train to that, and they carried on from Intarfa to Bin Gemma, mainly on mules, until trucks were introduced, lorries were introduced to the island by the military. So then they started using lorries, which were easier to get down to Valletta, to the harbour, unload off the ships, load straight to the lorries, and take them up to particular places. Now, we're going into the tunnel on the left-hand side, where we can find the platform, the station itself. Come in, please. Right. This, where I am standing, was the original platform. So the train came through there, it stopped here, people boarded on the train, boarded the carriages, because merely anybody came down here, stopped here. When I told you about the steps from the inside, and you could get to the platform from the inside, there is a blocked part here, a blocked doorway, a blocked arch, and this is, if you were to go down through the steps, this is where you would emerge onto the platform. Hopefully, in the coming years, these cables would be properly installed, and here will be open and we can come down through the stairway. Now, earlier on I said that this was designed by the same designers, same architects, same engineers who designed the London Underground. If you notice, the system is the same system like what you find in the older stations in London. There was a lady who asked me about that protruding bit of pipes there. That was the system when the train, as it developed, there was a telephone system. So once it left Valletta, they would inform the other parts, like from Valletta they would inform Floriana. The train has left now, and this guy knows the train is coming. So the guards are alerted, nobody is to cross, nobody is to come in here. If they were in certain other parts of the island where they had to chain so that nobody would go over the tracks, they did. And this guy also phoned up the other guy at the next station, which was Hamrun, and he would tell him, the train has left Valletta, it is now approaching Floriana. Once it got to Floriana, and it left from Floriana, he would phone up the other chap and say, it has just left Floriana, the train is coming towards you. If it was coming this way, the Hamrun chap would phone up Floriana, the train is coming to you. Besides, later on, when electricity was introduced, the cable, those were the insulators and the supports for the cable. If you were to go down further, you would notice that there are a number of them, the ones that still are there. Now, on my left-hand side, you can see there's what looks like a large hole. Those were air intakes, which had dual use. During the digging of the tunnel, all the rubble was taken up in baskets, large baskets, through there, loaded onto mules and donkeys, and God knows where they were being dumped. And besides, during the time when the train was running, they served as air intakes. Imagine in here, if a steam engine is running in here, the amount of steam. Besides, you can also notice the high percentage of humidity here. So those, at least in those days, gave in some fresh air and let out some of the unwanted kind of air out. Right.
Where does that lead, please?
This one, for example, leads into the garden, up into the garden. The ones further up, there are ones which also lead to the granaries, on the side of the granaries. There are grids over them, they're blocked nowadays. There was also another two which emerged at the mall, because during the time when they were digging this tunnel, when they got almost nearly by the church of St. Publius, they found out that there was a large reservoir from the time of the knights, which was still in use. So they had to go around it and create what is called and we refer to it as the double S. Actually, I mean, you can't see a double S, it's a double S because there is a part of an S on one end, then at the end of the reservoir there is another part of the S, so they call that an S and the other one an S, so they call it double S. And the train came back in line to where we are. Now, when the booking office is situated next to the Methodist church, there was an agreement at the time that the train would not go underneath the Methodist church. And the British government kept his word on it. So they just went on the side, by the side. So basically, that part of the tunnel, if you were to go straight up, you would come almost next to the Methodist church. Okay? But it never went underneath. They kept their word about that. Questions? Yes?
Train,
Sorry?
the train moved forward or reverse?
Very good question. The trains at one time, they were, oh lovely, thank you very much, great to appreciate it. The engines, in all we had 10 engines. Now, when the engines arrived, the first engines arrived, the first 3, they were just put on the track, whether they were facing Valletta or whether they were facing Ġnien. When I say facing, I mean the chimney in front. They never bothered. The thing was that the train, once it got to Notabile, and there was a siding, it was uncoupled from the wagons, the engine went on its own, it came on a side, in reverse, it reversed, it came back to the wagons, clamped, coupled again, and it pulled backwards. Now the thing is, with steam, there's no front or back. There's no reverse or front movement. It's just movement. For us, we say it's traveling in reverse. What is an important factor is that the train, the engine, whether going up or coming down on its return journey, was always pulling, not pushing. Now, at one time, when the Bayer Peacock engines started coming in, when the last 4 large engines, they decided that all trains would be facing north, would be facing Ġnien. So all the chimneys were in front. Once it got to Den and Tarfa, there was the same system. It went over the bridge, reversed the engine only, and recoupled, and it pulled, in a sort of speaking, it pulled backwards, but it was still pulling. Now, there were times, like in Naryia, when there was a lot of people traveling towards Rabat. They would have 2 engines, one in the front, one in the rear, so that they could have a number of carriages, and it was like a push-pull system. Once they got to Ġnien, then they had to leave. Some carriages either back in Hamrun, because there wouldn't be the need for all those carriages, because when people travel to Tubnarja. Remember, they spent the night there. So on the return journey, they wouldn't need so many carriages. So they left them at Hamrun and carried on. But then during the day, the next day, which was the 29th, people in the evening would be returning, so they would need a lot of carriages. Now, the more carriages that could join the train, it was easier and faster to travel people down back towards Valletta. We only had one track, single track, so you could not have two trains running at the same time, except for the parts where you had Birkirkara station, because you had a train which left Valletta, and a train which left from Imtarfa, and normally they met at Birkirkara. In Birkirkara, there was a siding, so the train coming from the north would go to the station, the other one coming from Valletta would go on the siding, so you could have two trains at that time. The only station which did not have a siding was that in Attal, because they were very afraid that if it was raining, the engine might slip, the train might slip, and they would cause accidents. So that was left like that. Otherwise, it was a pleasant journey. It was an experience. Children, for them, it was a novelty. It was a touch of progress, even when it came to the Industrial Revolution, because the only two things that happened in Malta during the time that came to Malta was the railway and the Baracca lift. The tram and all those came on much later, and besides, the tram, when it started, it finished off 15 months before the railway. You know? Then the lorries were introduced and the buses were introduced, and we still haven't found our feet when it comes to transport.
How long did the journey take?
The journey took about 20 to 25 minutes. Yes. Yes. And it took 25 minutes. It took 25 minutes at particular times and moments. Because on the way from here, past Hamrun complex, there was, before getting to Hamrun, getting to Mile End, there was a football pitch. And if there was a football game, mainly the engine driver would slow down to watch what's going on. And if they were about to, they were about to score a goal, he would even stop the train, and they would be clapping, and somebody would be shouting, "Go, Nominai!" So in that case, it would take you 25 minutes. Now, about the railway, there are so many things which people always talked about. There was one particular joke. British personnel, army personnel, were stationed in Malta from time to time. And the first time they got to Malta, if they were stationed at Imtarfa, well, we'll go to Valletta. We'll show you the railway in Malta. And besides, they have a tunnel which is called the Black Tunnel, and you can see ghosts at this tunnel. They were referring to this particular tunnel. It was so dark, so pitch black, that you couldn't see a thing. But the story says the new guys had to just look out of one of the windows in the carriages to be able to see the ghosts. They got to Valletta claiming that they never saw a ghost, they never saw it. It's not true, you are lying. Well, they don't show up always. But then they would be going through Merchant Street, Kingsway in those days, and people would look at them and laugh. It was all because their face was full of soot. Then they used to go past some nice shopping window, look through the window and realize his face was black. So a fight broke off, you know, between him and his mate, and you know. So those were the ghosts that were seen here, mainly. But everybody kept it to himself, so that the new guys would get soot on their face.
Sorry,
Yes.
if there was only one track, why did we have 10 trains?
10 engines, because you had two engines working at the same time.
Yes.
Besides,
And the others then?
besides, the first 3 that were bought, one of them, after a few years, had to be eliminated and used as spare parts. Used as spare parts for the other 2. Then there were 2 other engines bought, the number 4 and number 5, and these eventually, one of them was what we call a saddle tank, and it was altered because the systems that we had here were they had water tanks on the side, and those water tanks, they used that water for the boiler to steam up the main engine, and because it all ran on steam power. So eventually, yes, they were more efficient than the number 1 and the number 3 engine. But as more commuters were using the train, started using the train, they wanted heavier engines which could handle a number of carriages along. And they bought the Bear Peacock ones. The Bear Peacock, compared to the Melling Warder ones which we had originally, were much better, both from the engineering side and also performance-wise. So they bought 4 at the time. The way of thinking wasn't the Maltese way of thinking, it was the British way of thinking. It was money coming from UK. So instead of buying 2, we buy 3, and we might as well get 4. You know? Besides, they also thought about maintenance time, because all the maintenance for the carriages, for the engines, both carpentry-wise, mechanically, they were all done at the complex in Hamroom. Hamroom was the main depot for the railway, and they had workshops there. Next week, on Saturday, we will be showing those people at the festival at Cicolata, we would be showing you around the station, the Hamroon railway station. There will also be George and his model railway from the Malta Railway. Yes, what the scouts are. There will also be a steam model railway, very similar to the same system which worked in Malta with the carriages and everything. So those of you who are interested can come there.
In the morning?
No, it's in the evening. During the festival at Cicolata, chocolate festival. I think it's from about 6:30, 7 o'clock onwards, if I'm not
Are
mistaken.
there any still trains like the engines?
No, no engines. What is well kept is the station itself. The scouts have done a marvelous job there. They have kept it so nice, so tidy, and so original. As a matter of fact, one of the exhibits will be in one of the old sheds of the railway, where the engines used to be garaged, sort of, at night. Okay?
Where is this?
The Scouts headquarters. We know it in Malta. We call it Ġnien. It's you go past the police station, okay? Go towards the school. Go further. It's situated at the end of the road there.
Why did it stop?
It stopped because it wasn't feasible anymore. The buses went to different places, went further on. For example, if you lived in Dingley, once you got to Rabat, you gave him something extra and he would drive you to Dingley. The railway, you couldn't do that. There was a question down there. Yes, madam.
This station in Birkirkara.
Yes.
There are still the remains.
Yes.
What any information about this?
Right. The station in Birkirkara. That is where we envisage to have our museum, railway museum. But at the moment, this place is being used as a kindergarten school. It's a childcare center, rather. If we don't move, until we move the children, the childcare center from there to elsewhere, either to Paris school or Bralett school, we won't be able to start the work. The carriage, the only surviving carriage, or what is left out of it, has been taken away because it's in a pity state, but it will be restored, and until we have the place where to put it, safe and sound and secure, nothing will start. Because it's useless to restore it, and then once it's restored in a couple of months, what are you going to do about it? Leave it there? We either have a secure place and a safe place, or nothing.
Where was the last stop in Valletta?
The last stop was in St. James. Yes, St. James Ditch. Going into Valletta, on the right-hand side, when you look down on the ditch, there was a bridge. The bridge is still there, and the terminus was where the yellow garage is. Now, that garage is being used as part of the parliamentary buildings. They have the air conditioning system, they have mechanical parts to keep the building warm and fresh according to the likes and dislikes of the people who are more privileged than us. But remember, this is a democratic country, always do as you're told.
Have there been plans to make the railway electric?
Pardon?
Have there been plans to make the railway electric?
Let me answer that very, very carefully. There are so many plans. There have been so many people getting bright ideas, and some stupid ones as well, I must say. That, to be honest, I tell you that till this day, there is nothing solid. Nothing solid. When it comes to railways, if you don't have experienced people, experienced engineers, experienced architects, people who are experienced in electrical engineering, in construction, you have to have a good team together, put their heads together, come up with a plan. There's no politician who can come up with a plan. Remember one thing, politicians, with all due respect to everyone, they are there today, gone tomorrow. We are here for a substantial amount of time, and we are going to be using whatever is decided. So it's useless best to have the right, experienced people. But then the decisions are made by politicians, unfortunately. But let's leave it there, if you don't mind.
Let's not spoil our Sunday.
Sorry? Oh, there are electric trains, there are diesel trains, there are so many.
No, that's what
Yes. Good. Yes, very nice. Yes. Yes.
And what is it?
This leads up to the ticket booth outside.
Obviously. Therefore, it wasn't the passage that it wasn't the passage that we used to came down.
No. It was used as well.
But
mainly this. One last thing. If you go on Facebook, you might come across photographs of beds, people sleeping here. During the wartime, this was used as a shelter, and there were a number of people who, even though there wasn't an air raid, they came to sleep down here because they did not want to spoil their nights by having an air raid and having to wake up and come down to the shelter. Yes, exactly. All right, thank you very much. Those of you who are interested, we have a video about the Malta Railway. It sells for €5. It's both in English on it. You can choose either English language or Maltese language. When I go up, if there's anybody interested and would like to obtain one, you can do so. You are most welcome. Hopefully by next year, we might have a new production, which would have more information